Okay, so this is the new builder. I have the agent mode on. Let's pop in the prompt and see what we get. And boom. So wait, it just integrated the whole backend for me already, like the database, AI stuff, and everything, because that would have taken me hours. Okay, so Versal has just put out a brand new version of their no-code builder called V0, that's now called V0 App. And it's kind of insane what you can do with it. And in my opinion, it's really setting the bar for what we should expect from these no-code builders like Lovable or Obsolete. And so today I want to show you what this brand new version feels like. And I'm going to do a live build with Lovable on the side so that you can compare and see the difference. So just before we get into some examples, let's just do a quick walkthrough of what this new V0 version looks like. Okay, so here we are inside and we have the new agent mode on, and otherwise pretty similar to other no-code builder. Now this agent mode here, what it really means is that, the AI builder here, instead of just charging into something after you prompted it, it's going to think a little and have a plan step by step, and you're going to actually see the checklist once you start prompting. And it's going to consider the tool that it has access to and actually the things that it needs to do to get what you want it to do. But anyway, let's just do a rapid fire walkthrough of the main features so that you can see how it's a bit different from something like Lovable. So again, V0 is by Versal, and Versal is a deployment platform. So something to actually run your build live and make it publicly accessible. For example, you're going to be able to set up environment variables, which again, is kind of boring, but it's going to be essentially where you can put all of your API keys and other things that you use to integrate platform directly inside of your app builder. Now, if you've ever actually built an app, you know how important this is, and it can be a bit of a hassle if you're using Lovable because that's not something that is really built in. So that's just going to be a safe and easy way to deploy your live API keys. You can also set up some instructions and sources. So that's just going to be, sort of your system prompt and knowledge base that, the whole project and AI builder is going to be able to access, just to give a bit more direction and get something a bit more specific about what you want. And you're going to have a bunch of native integrations. And again, that's something that can be a bit of a hassle in Lovable. If you don't know what you're doing, it kind of is a manual process. But in V0, there's a bunch of native integration to make this a lot easier. So things like, an AI router or different databases option. There's a bunch of other apps that you can integrate easily. And everything is going to be handled just from the one Versal dashboard, which again makes it easier to centralize everything and to build a, working app a lot faster. I think that's really where those no-code builders are going. We have Bolt that just announced the Bolt Cloud, which is essentially going to do something very similar to this V0 and Versal, just having this whole ecosystem and infrastructure already built into the app. Replit is doing a pretty good job at this already, but I think the other builders are just catching up now. For example, and I know a lot of people building those apps have an AI feature in mind, and you can do this pretty easily natively in Versal with this sort of centralized AI router. So you're just going to put a bunch of credits and then choose the different models that you wanted to have access to. You can see the list here. Obviously, you can remove some if they're too expensive for you. But with just the one API keys, you're going to be able to implement this in your project without, again, having to go into OpenAI or OpenRouter and get the API key here and there, and there's having to mush this all together. This is all centralized and made a lot easier in Versal. And this is all done at the project level. So you can have different apps and different websites all using the same variables, all using the same API keys, or using all of those things that we just talked about for the whole project without, again, having to redo everything for every new project that you have. Something else that I thought was pretty cool was this fork feature, which is sort of a different way to have a history. You also have the version history thing, but this is a way for you to say, okay, well, if I try to take it this route, what it would look like, and then I can just go back to this fork and take it a different route. I think it's a lot more efficient sometimes than just going back to a version history. That can allow you to sort of split test two different ways to do something and sort of see how it looks like. Okay, so those are really the main features of this new V0 builder. And I know some of this stuff is possible in Lovable. So let's go into this build and sort of do a side-by-side comparison, Lovable versus V0, and see what it actually feels like. And so I'm going to build a simple tool for this test, but essentially it's going to be a milestone dashboard. So essentially, if you have clients, you have, a contract, an agreement of the different milestones and thing that you're going to do with this client. I just want a nice, clean way to display this for you and the client just to see the progress and track the different milestone that you have in your project, and just have a bit of a visual way to see this and get everyone excited about the progress that you're making on the project. And I also want to have an AI feature so that a client can just go in and ask what the current status of the project is and then just get an answer. And this should be a pretty good test because, we're going to need something like database, we're going to need API and AI features, and we're going to need like a nice UI and animation and stuff. Okay, so here is my prompt, and let's have it run in V0 and also in Lovable. And just to note that I don't have access to Lovable agent mode because I think it's still in beta and I don't think it's available in the UK quite yet.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Okay, and this is interesting because what you can see in V0 is exactly what I was talking about, which is that before starting to generate something, just like Lovable is doing right now, and it's going to create a project plan with all of the tasks and different steps of what it thinks it's going to need to do. And alongside this, it's going to make me create the backend, create all of the integration needed for what I want. Instead of just having me do it afterwards, like you would in Lovable, where you're just going to have the result that you're going to have, and then you're going to have to integrate all of these things like Supabase or other APIs. Okay, so now we're done. And obviously V0 took a bit longer because it did the whole backend setup on top of the UI and all the functionalities. But this is the first result after the first prompt. And off the bat, in terms of UI, we have this sort of Lovable feel. I don't know how to describe it, but if you've ever built something in Lovable, you know what I mean. The design looks always kind of similar unless you really spend a lot of time. And again, it was pretty quick for Lovable to pop something out, but nothing is quite working. Again, there's no functionality. It's just a dashboard. There's no UI. None of the button kind of works. This is popping, but I think if you test it out, yeah, there you go. So it's just going to give me the same message over and over. Obviously, nothing is connected, so this is not a working functionality. And that's usually the experience that you get with Lovable, which is that it's going to give you a great UI, but then you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time prompting for the functionality, the database, and all of the things that make this work to put it all together and actually have the things that you had in mind. Now, back to V0, we already have the database set up with Supabase, and we have a profile, so we can log in. The functionality just seems to be working off the bat. I see that this is actually working. This is actually not working, to be honest. There's no setting, but actually the settings are here. Through the process, I was prompted to set up my API key. So this is set up and working. So already we have something a lot more finished than Lovable after the first prompt. Something else that I really like about V0, and I think Bolt has something very similar, but it's this design mode, where you can just pop in and edit a bunch of things manually. And Lovable does have something similar, but I think it's just not as smooth. Like you have to reprompt, or I know you can get into the menu and change this kind of things, but it just seems a lot more limiting than this new V0 builder. It's really just a minor difference, but I think if you spend a lot of time refining your project, you're going to find this a bit easier in V0. And I mentioned this other difference that in V0, you are actually going to get your own dashboard access to Versal, and that's going to give you access to storage, but also web analytics, and you'll be able to see the traffic and just really manage your speed and just manage a bunch more things that again you wouldn't really have in Lovable. Now it still works on a credit basis, which I'm not a big fan of. I'm on the free plan and it was enough to do a bit of testing, but obviously I would have to upgrade if I really wanted to make a finished project. But that's really all I have to say for this quick side-by-side comparison between Lovable and V0 and what you can expect. Obviously, go ahead and try it yourself. You can get quite a bit done on the free plan, so you should just give it a try. And if you're brand new to using those no-code AI builders, then go ahead and watch my last video where I really go in depth into what to consider, what to expect, and if these are a good option for you and your project. Or if you just want to keep updated with AI automations and the best one to implement in your business, go ahead and subscribe to my free newsletter. That's going to be in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.